Good evening and welcome to the Village Board of Trustees Workshop Meeting. Today is Monday, March 29th. It is now 7 p.m. I would like all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if I may ask for all of us to remain standing and think about the great sacrifice that firefighter Jared Lloyd has taken last week in the tragic fire in Spring Valley. His sacrifice will not be forgotten. Thank you. You may have a seat. I have a roll call vote. Trustee Alpert.
Present.
Trustee Joe Meegan-Corrigan.
Present.
Trustee Barone.
Present.
And Trustee Sauberman.
Mayor, I see Trustee Sauberman just joined. Hopefully he'll connect.
Yes, he's muted. So if he can unmute. There you go, Mr. Sauberman. You were unmuted.
Yes, but so far I can't get the video.
Okay, we're doing the roll call vote, so you're present. Work on the video.
The host has to allow it. It's telling me.
Okay. Can the host?
Mr. Sauberman, you should be able to start the video.
I keep pressing start video, but it doesn't. Now it should work. Okay, very good. Finally.
Thank you. We also have Village Clerk, Miss Amy Paffenroth, and we have the Village Attorney, Mr. Rob Magrino, online also. Okay, the next regular Village Board meeting of trustees will be held Monday, April 5th at 7 p.m. And the next workshop meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 26th at 7 p.m. Anybody have any conflicts?
No.
Okay. Great. I'd like to switch item number 2 and item number 3. I'd like for Avon to present before the fire department. They are a little bit busy and they needed a little extra time. So if Avon is ready to do their presentation.
Mayor, I'm making Mr. Seth Mandelbaum a co-host with us.
Okay.
And Seth, if you would just let us know who else we would like from the Avon group or.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yes, Stuart Johnson is going to be sharing his screen in a little bit. He's our architect on behalf of Avon. And David Parry, P-A-R-R-Y, is having trouble connecting from the UK. He is part of our presentation as well. He's trying to come in through the Zoom website, I think, right now, so I apologize. Hopefully he'll be able to get in a moment here. Since he did want to give the board an update. I don't see him yet. So if you could bear with us for one moment. We definitely would like him to be on. He is trying to get on. So I can start with my introduction, which will take a minute or two, and hopefully by then, Mr. Parry will I'm sorry, I'm just getting a lot of background noise. Hopefully by then, Mr. Parry will have joined. So good evening. My name is Seth Mandelbaum with the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout. Pleased to be here this evening, and thank you, Mayor and members of the board, for giving us a few minutes of your time this evening. We very much appreciate it. As you may remember, we represent Avon Capital Corporation and Avon Products Incorporated regarding their property on Washington Avenue and Lafayette Avenue, Route 59, of course, their Global Innovation Center, their global R&D facility right here in the village of Suffern, as well as what you may remember we call the nail enamel parcel or nail enamel building, which is on the west side of Washington Avenue. It's about 1.9 acres. The main R&D facility is about 10 acres. And as you may remember, this property is subject of a pilot agreement, which dates back to 2003 in connection with the original development of the R&D facility. Avon, of course, has been a part of the village of Suffern for, I believe, over 100 years now, and of course has evolved over the years. The nail enamel building was where they used to make nail enamel, but that has not been the case for many years. It's currently used for more of a warehouse and storage and distribution type use at the moment. As you may remember, in 2019, we approached the village and obtained a subdivision approval from the planning board to divide out the nail enamel parcel on the west side of Washington Avenue from the main R&D facility. And the goal there was to sell off the nail enamel parcel to raise some capital. Mr. Parry will talk about that in a minute. And David Parry, just to give you a background, is on hopefully in a moment here, as well as Josie Adams, who you may remember from last year. Ms. Adams is Avon's worldwide Vice President of Research and Development. As I mentioned, Stuart Johnson of Minnow Wasco Architects is on. And since we last saw you, we talked about this a little bit for those that were on the board in early 2020, before the world went a little nutty. Avon was acquired by Natura and Company, which is made up of 4 brands: Avon, Natura, The Body Shop, and Aesop, all kind of related industries. And Mr. Parry works out of the UK and is the global real estate director for The Body Shop. So now that we're coming, hopefully, out of this terrible pandemic, as we're all getting vaccinated as soon as we can and hopefully protecting ourselves as much as possible, Avon wants to re-engage with the board. We, of course, had a couple of tries in late 2019, early 2020 to remove the nail enamel parcel from the pilot for the purpose of selling off that parcel, and for various reasons. And I see Mr. Parry has now joined the meeting, so he'll be speaking in a moment. For various reasons, those didn't work out. So we've sort of revisited this and talked to the village attorney and the mayor and deputy mayor a little bit to try to get a sense of what the village might want to see at this location. And in light of that, Mr. Johnson has prepared some concepts for one possible use that we'll take you through in a minute, which we think it would be a exciting possible use for the property. And then we just want to talk to you a little bit about potential process on how we can work together on achieving Avon and the village's goals at this location. So David, I don't know if someone can make David Parry a presenter, please, so he can talk a little bit about what's been going on with the company and what the goals are here. And then Stuart Johnson has a very brief architectural presentation for you. So I will be quiet now. David, it's great to see you made it from the UK, where it's tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
So thank you for hanging in there tonight, and happy to hear what you have to say to the board.
Thanks, Seth. I appreciate the introduction. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. A few technical issues there. Thanks for the thumbs up, Stuart. So yeah, I mean, great to be here this evening and meet again those that I already know of you and those who I don't. It's great to see you here. Virtually, I would have liked to have been there in person. As Seth said, I'm looking after the global real estate for the Body Shop, but as part of the Natura & Co group now, part of the synergies that we have is also that I can support other brands, and I'm doing so in looking after Avon in terms of their real estate also. And really, I'm going to give you just a brief overview of where we are before handing over to Stuart, who's going to take you through some really great slides that we've got together to present the project today. But I just wanted to sort of set the scene in terms of where we are today. Seth's talked about the history and where we've come from, but it's really just to say that when Natura took over Avon, it was about taking on a business that was in decline, for many years, and Avon has really been seen as a great target for Natura because they believe in what Avon stands for and the future that it has. But to achieve that, it started on quite an ambitious 3-year transformation program. That started last year, and we're now into year 2 already, which, the time is flying by with COVID is put the brakes on a little bit. But really what transformation means is that Natura is looking to integrate Avon into its businesses globally, and use the synergies that creates to really turn the business around. An example of that is the fact that Avon had capacity in many of its warehousing and factories globally. And what we're doing is we're moving products and manufacture from the other brands, so for example, the Body Shop, into those factories, which gives a better price for the sister brands and gives more units to Avon to reduce their prices too. So, really great synergies that we're seeing. Of course, all of those projects take money to fund, and it's that fuel for growth really that links us to this project here specifically. Today we're talking about on that nail enamel building, because that's been identified as part of the due diligence from Natura of a project which can really release some cash to generate then future growth for the business as we move forward through the transformation package. So really the message I wanted to make clear today was that, one, we're looking to go quite quickly because we need that fuel for growth to help future projects of Avon. But two, it's really today about building on the partnership we've already started with the mayor and deputy mayor on the call today, who we've spoken to previously, and really meeting you all today in terms of an engagement. We're looking really from yourselves, engagement, commitment to what Avon's trying to achieve, and you're a key stakeholder in this. So we also want your input, your guidance to help support that. It's about doing something which works well for Avon, but it's only going to be a success if this works well for the village of Suffern. So that's the key message here, is to really work with you in partnership. And today is also about understanding, what will be the next steps in terms of whether that's the rezoning that's required for this area for the project, or understanding more about the densities of the product itself, what would be delivered and what's realistic, because those sorts of points are important when we go through our next step of selecting the developer and developers that are going to be financially viable in this project together with us. So I think, without further ado, I think we can hand over to Stuart, who's going to take you through. I know we're quite tight on time, and he's got some slides which will bring to life a little bit more than my descriptions, what we're trying to achieve. But certainly I hope you'll find in the designs things that really have also been requested from the village that we would like to deliver as part of this, that, as a partnership will help us achieve a sort of win-win, things like such as the parking or other. So thanks very much. Of course, available afterwards as well for questions, but I'll hand over to Stuart now, who's going to take us through those slides.
Well, great. Well, thank you, David. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. I'm going to share my screen. So it's a pleasure to be here with you all virtually this evening. I echo David's sentiments. It would be nice to be there in person, but we're happy to share with you our vision for the site. And just to take a step back, again, Stuart Johnson, I'm a principal of Minowasco Architects and Planners, and we were retained by the Avon team here to begin to provide vision for this potential redevelopment site and better understand potential uses. And specifically, we were studying opportunities for a new multifamily housing community here within the village of Suffern. This is an ideal redevelopment site to provide new housing within the downtown core to support some of the existing businesses found within the downtown. The site is approximately it's about 1.87 acres. The site is highlighted here in red. Many of you folks may be familiar with the site, but the site has frontage on Washington Avenue to the east. It has frontage on Suffern Place to the west, and frontage to the north to the existing freight line railroad tracks. So again, this is an ideal site. Steps to the train station, steps to the downtown, to the existing retail and businesses that can be found there. If I advance the slide here, we began studying opportunities again for new multifamily housing within the downtown. And we're going to share one potential vision for the site here, which would provide for a new multifamily community comprised of 174 residential apartment units, which would consist of a mix of studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartment units. Specifically, the project that is proposed could be 4 levels of residential apartment units over 2 levels of podium parking. The plan on screen here, sheet A01, is a conceptual ground level floor plan that shows the ground level podium level of parking, which has 2 different vehicular ingress and egress access points. There is one which is dedicated for residential garage access off of Washington Avenue, and an additional entrance off of Suffern Place. The project provides for 353 new parking spaces, which complies with the zoning found within the TDD zoning of the downtown. It also additionally provides for plus or minus 40 parking spaces dedicated for public use. So again, that's a great access, and you can see here there would be a secure key fob gate access or secure public access for those 40 public spaces with a new sidewalk with frontage on Suffern Place. The area highlighted or pochade in yellow could be the new residential lobby, consisting of a boutique hotel style lobby, an on-site leasing center, and opportunity for residential lounge space or WeWork type style spaces, which essentially everywhere highlighted in yellow could have storefront windows fronting on Washington Avenue to really activate the ground floor of that building, provide a pedestrian presence with human scale to the architecture. And one additional point to note on this screen is the additional streetscape improvements. So existing condition today, there's a sidewalk of 5 or 6 feet on either side on Washington Avenue and Suffern Place, with existing surface parking that supports the existing industrial use there. With the street improvements here, we would provide for a new 16-foot wide sidewalk or distance from curb to building that could allow for a new planting strip, which is being shown here along the curb with new street trees, a new sidewalk which could range in depth from 8 to 10 feet, an opportunity for planting along the building, again, to soften where the building meets the hardscape, and other opportunities for an inlaid brick paver detail at the entrance lobby, again, to call attention to that main residential lobby. So really an opportunity to activate Washington Avenue, connect to allow for increased pedestrian connectivity to downtown and the main street within the village. Advancing the slide just very quickly, a few illustrative theme images to better represent some of the programs that could be found within that residential lobby. WeWork type style lounge type spaces for residents of this new multifamily community. Again, a boutique hotel style lobby, opportunities for bike share programs for these new residents. And then advancing the slide, we have a conceptual building section, which shows those 4 levels of proposed residential housing over 2 levels of parking, with, again, the area in yellow being the residential lobby, fronting on Washington Avenue. You can see the dimension here of 16 feet from curb to building face, opportunity for new street trees and a green strip along the building. If I advance the slide here, this is the 3rd floor of the building. It's a typical residential floor, but this 3rd floor here is the main residential amenity floor. The building as designed is a double-loaded corridor building which has an open air courtyard here that's about 100 feet in width and 160 feet in length, which allows for adequate natural air and light to that courtyard. We would envision on this level a club room for residents of the community, a state-of-the-art fitness center, private event dining space, and access for indoor and outdoor for passive and active residential amenities. So I advance the slide here. Again, we have a few pages just to share some illustrative theme imagery of what you could expect with some of that programming. But starting from the top left, a club room space where residents could gather and congregate, a smaller private event room for new residents of this multifamily building, another example of a club room, and again, state-of-the-art fitness center with storefront windows fronting on that open air courtyard. Additionally, within the courtyard itself, opportunity for perhaps a pool with a sun shelf, more passive areas with small fire pits or outdoor dining experience for these residents. Something more important that we're all realizing living through the pandemic. And lastly, we have an illustrative theme image board here just to represent some of the opportunities or some of the architectural vocabulary that we can look at found within the greater downtown core of the village and also, the surrounding area. So opportunities, exterior building materials consisting of masonry brick veneer, stone veneer, fiber cement siding, large windows for the residential units, 9-foot ceilings, really an opportunity to provide an attractive new building that fits well within the existing architecture found within the village of Suffern. So with that really concludes our short presentation, but we're very excited to be able to share this vision for the site.
Thank you very much, Stuart. So Mayor, members of the board, that's essentially what we wanted to show you. But what we'd like to do, if you have a few more moments, is frankly get your reaction to this concept. As I mentioned in my letter, there are some developers that have made various offers already on the property, but all of them want to know what the village thinks about this idea and whether there can be an efficient robust secret process, but one that is efficient and gets to a point where the zoning allows for this, as you did with your TDD, in this area of the village, a little further from downtown, but not right in the core, like by the Sheldon, and really answer your questions, but mostly get a reaction, which will be very helpful to us and our team in responding to the offers and interest that has already come in to our folks. So with that, I'll
Thank you.
ask for that.
Thank you for the presentation and the information that was provided. The village of Suffern is in need, as David Perry was saying, as similar to Avon and Natura, fuel for growth, increase in revenue, and future growth. Linking this very valuable piece of land directly to the village of Suffern just increases the value of it overall for the village of Suffern, for our own growth and development in a responsible manner. With the presentation provided and the connectivity to Lafayette Avenue, I'm excited about the project itself overall, with being able to develop that piece of property and introduce more economic development and growth here in the village of Suffern.
Thank you.
Board?
I'd like-
Oh, go ahead, Fred.
All right, I would just like to say we saw two different views of the whole place. One with red brick, and on the right-hand corner, the place the way it looks with a gray exterior. And to me, the difference is dramatic because the exterior with the gray was much more pleasant and dramatic than the red brick. So will we have input as to what type of facade you're going to have, for example?
Well, these are conceptual ideas. And of course, the developer that hopefully ultimately comes up with an acceptable offer and wants to take this forward would come up with their own proposal, which of course would be subject to the village's approval on the zoning and the use, and I as is typical would be the architecture as well. Stuart, do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, I think that's right, Seth. So, again, we tried to, those are just illustrative theme images, looking at some of the architecture that can be found within the downtown of the village. You can find some of those turn gable detailing. There are many examples of red brick buildings, traditional red brick buildings, but I don't disagree. I think that the cooler tones of the slurry gray brick and, opportunities for some stone veneer or cast stone being used on the building are also very appropriate and could provide a contemporary palette for this building. So I think there would be an opportunity that if the zoning were to move forward on this site and allow for an opportunity for redevelopment at the appropriate time, Seth, we could certainly, or, the designated redeveloper for this potential site would come before this board and certainly share a more final concept, and there may very well be a workshop session with the public.
Yeah, that would be important to all of us. It certainly does look attractive. And I'm glad you agree with me about the lighter grayish tone. I realize that's a minor point, but it does look like a very attractive project to me.
I was going to chime in that I think that the downtown area does need more residential buildings to bring more people to buy food and merchandise at the stores and the restaurants. And I think that that's, essentially a slam dunk. I think that there's, nobody that would really argue against that.
I agree, Mr. Alpert, that's an economic driver that would be put right in the middle of downtown, Suffern, which would benefit the entire village of Suffern, not only in tax revenue and water revenue and sewer revenue, but it will be an economic driver to all the businesses on Lafayette Avenue in and around the community.
And Mayor, to that point, as we talked about a lot last year, which feels like 7 years ago, but it was only a year. The pilot that was entered into with the IDA and the village and the school district in 2003, which does not expire for 4 more years, the total taxes on almost 12 acres are well below what they would be at the current assessment that's on the tax roll. So the approximately 1.9 acre site that is the nail enamel lot, should the village consent to remove that from the pilot and the school board and allow us to do that, that almost 2 acre property would go back on the tax rolls at full taxation. So right off the bat, it would be out of that agreement, which almost 20 years ago was entered into by all the parties to encourage the development of that global R&D facility that's still there. It's a beautiful building, and that is the still the global center for research and development. So going forward, that's something that the village should, of course, keep in mind. And then on top of that, you would have the development that the assessor would look at as they would look at any other development.
Do you anticipate that this building would be rental or condo, or what would be your concept on that side of it?
It's hard to say. It would be up to the developer that ultimately was purchasing the property and bringing forth that proposal. In my experience, in the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, something like this would typically be rentals, particularly at the density we're talking about. And we think the density is appropriate, but please tell us if you think it isn't, if you want it to be more units or less units, or it's about right. It does work on that site under the current TGG zoning. We kind of use that to park it and make sure that the height and all was sort of in the ballpark of what was approved down the street at the Sheldon. But in my experience, it would probably be rentals, but it'd be up to the developer. Certainly the form of ownership would be up to the developer, but the use would be a multifamily use either way, as you're hearing.
I'm excited about the project. I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful, positive move for Suffern.
Agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Barone.
Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns that anyone would like to raise?
Well, I definitely am looking forward. I know that on our agenda tonight, our planner is on the agenda. We have an RFP out for that. So I think that's a wonderful thing that we can get the whole plan for the village and find out what's right for both parties so that everyone's making a good decision. And I look forward to that. I mean, what you presented was lovely, by all means. I'm the sticky one on parking, sorry. Charlie and I actually live in the village and we're here every day, living down here. So, the pictures were gorgeous by all means. I'd like to keep it as part of the character of the village, which, is not, again, the main objective of this, but I'm excited that we're getting the RFP out for the planner and we're going to, get this all done and get it done right responsibly. And I think it's a wonderful idea. With the planner, I think it's going to be a really, really good thing.
I have a question. You had mentioned, speaking of parking, you had mentioned, I don't remember the exact number, something close to 200 spots. What does that work out to per unit? Is that 2 per unit or what's the anticipation on that?
1.7.
Okay.
So it's 1.79 dedicated for the residential. So that's about 313 spaces dedicated for the residential. There are additionally then are 40 spaces which would be public use, and I think there's a natural there's a natural sort of balance between those two, and through a shared parking concept, right? Those 40 public spaces could be shared perhaps on nights and sort of overnight. So I think that would work out well, especially with a mix. I expect that likely the mix here might be 50% 2 bedrooms, and the remainder of the units likely are 1 bedrooms and studios. So it would certainly work out that, essentially the 2 bedroom units would have 2 cars per, and, the 1 bedrooms and studios are the ones that are at, 1.25, 1.35. And then again, there would be the opportunity to share some of those public spaces.
Also, as a transit-oriented type development, I've seen developments with 1 space per unit or 1.25 is pretty
Right.
Pretty typical.
We already have that problem here.
Right. So this one is close to 2 per unit, 1.79, 1.8. Plus, then we've offered, as part of this concept, showing the 40 dedicated public spaces in reaction to what we've all heard about and seen, like every other downtown in the suburbs, public parking is certainly at a premium.
Yes, very much so here. It's wonderful that everyone wants to be in our village, by sure.
Could you correct me if I misspeak, but I believe the Sheldon is 1.2 spots per unit, and this is going to be 1.7.
Yes.
All right, that is a move in the direction that we need to go. To 1.2 is not enough.
Okay, that's helpful guidance as we talk to.
Yes, I would really like all to have 2, but I mean, we can have these conversations down the road because we're getting the comprehensive plan done, and I'm sure you'll be very involved in that, which is really exciting and positive. So,
What is the number of 2 bedrooms?
So the current concept that I shared with you all here visions for approximately 95 2 bedrooms. So that's about 55%.
And again,
I would think.
So the breakdown,
sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry. The breakdown from 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and studios.
Right. So right now we're showing 2% studios. I would envision 5% or so of studios is probably appropriate for this market. But essentially we're showing 45% 1 bedrooms and studios and 55% 2 bedrooms. And again, at that 1.79 dedicated for residential, that would probably work out to be that we could have 2 per for the 2 bedrooms, and then back out of that for obviously the 1 bedrooms and studios. But if you include the 40 public spaces and a shared component, it's technically 2 per across the board.
So Stuart, are you going to be sharing the presentation that you gave tonight? with the whole board?
So Seth, I defer that to you, but I think this has become public. I know this is being recorded on
Yeah,
Facebook. We have no problem.
That would be so helpful.
It's a
Good.
public document, but let me just say, I just want to make sure we're all kind of seeing it for what it is, because it is just a concept right now.
Right.
And Stuart is a great architect, and I've done other projects with him, and you know, his concept often is the one that ends up being built, but not always. And again, it's really going to be driven by the village's vision and the ultimate developer that is willing to move forward with the project and you know, come up with an appropriate purchase price for the property. And you know, it's great that you're starting your comp plan process. We certainly, as I mentioned, you know, want to see as efficient a process as possible. And we know that we can work together on that. And you're right, we will certainly have input, I think, in that process, and would like to do everything we can to keep it moving along in a fair manner, but in one that keeps things moving forward. Because unfortunately, we've all seen situations where SECRA can slow things down because of process and ends up killing more trees with, you know, things this thick that end up on your desk, as opposed to actually analyzing environmental issues. It's unfortunate, but there's sort of a cottage industry around SECRA that slows things down and creates a lot of paper, but doesn't necessarily solve problems. So we'd like to work with you to get through that process in a meaningful but fair way.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so what would be our next steps there, Mr. Magrino?
Well, Mayor, if I can, this might be an appropriate time to jump into the 50 Lafayette Avenue update. What I'll say is, I think what Joe was referring to, we have put out the RFP for a planner for a comprehensive plan. As you know, we did receive, I guess a month or so ago, or 2 months ago, a petition to change the, for a zone change, basically, at 50 Lafayette Avenue. You know, in reviewing it, it needed more work. And so for the last month, myself, Steve Conley, and John Lang, who has provided planning services to the village before, have been working on not so much a zone just for 50 Lafayette, but what I would call a floating zone for the CB and GB districts. And I did have a discussion with Seth about this. I advised him, you know, that was going on, as he knew, because the petition had been made. So next week, with respect to 50 Lafayette, the plan would be to present to the board a proposal for this TOD floating zone, which may impact upon this particular project. It's really so the board has something to vote on, yes or no, up or down. I know there's issues with parking, there's many issues, height, building height, etc. So that 50 Lafayette can have an indication as to whether or not the project is right to go now, or whether it's something that has to wait. So that's kind of where it is. And that the reason I'm bringing that up is because that impacts this a little bit. I don't have a problem, you know, sharing it with Seth, the proposal to get his comment. It's a little more detailed than the TDD was, because it impacts so many potential properties in the CB and GB districts. So the short answer, I just wanted to bring that up in terms of what's happening. It's almost like a parallel track. So
Right.
50 Lafayette, separate issue, separate deal. But if the board is willing to go with that TOD zone at this time, or floating zone at this time, it will, that train will kind of pull out of the station. If it's not, it won't. But again, I think Seth, I'd defer to Seth for his comments in terms of when he feels this would be ready for an application, or a petition to the board for a zone change, because it would undoubtedly need a zone change on that piece of property that it's on.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we've sort of put out some feelers among qualified developers that our team has either worked with or is familiar with, or that are familiar with the village. And we've actually received several different types of offers for different types of uses, not just residential. Some of them comply with the current zoning, some are consistent with Avon's current use, and others are more of the multifamily concept that in line with what you saw this evening. But until we have a developer, Avon clearly is not a developer. Avon does not want to be a developer. Avon wants to support that process, but Avon is also the closest neighbor to this site in its R&D facility, and is looking at the sort of the big picture here with the pilot coming off in the next 4 years, and is taking a look at the whole package, and is very interested, of course, in what happens after it can hopefully sell this property. David, I don't know if you want to add any comments from your perspective.
Thanks, Seth. Yeah, I mean, I would just add that absolutely really interested in the 50 Lafayette and the floating zoning on TOD that Mr. Magrino just outlined there. It would be really interesting to get a feel for what that is before we go back to the developers that do have an interest in this property, and how that could impact them, and what that might mean in terms of any restrictions, of course, in terms of the property that we've presented today, which of course is our best goal. It's our best outcome for Avon, is the property we've shown today. As Seth has said, we have had other offers for other types of use. We've got a range of offers, which is great in some respects, but the ones we want to move forwards with, ideally and quickly, is developers who are looking to do what Stuart's outlined today in his slides. But it's really for us key to go quickly here, in terms of what I said right at the start, this fuel for growth that we're looking for the business, and be really keen to understand what's happening next week in terms of that presentation regarding the 50 Lafayette. I've understood that 50 Lafayette's a little bit further down the street, more into the town centre, so it won't be the same zone specifically as where we are, but we could imagine, if that goes ahead, that we get we could push for a similar request in terms of that floating zoning to our parcel. Is that right?
It might be available to our parcel. I'll look at if Mr. Magrino is willing can share it. That would be incredibly useful in the next week or so, before the board formally considers it next Monday. And if the board would like our thoughts on it, we're happy to share those. If you don't want our thoughts, then we won't share those. But we're certainly curious to see how it might apply to Avon's property.
Sounds good. I think the parallel track approach, and keeping the project separate, of course, is, Avon's concerns on Suffern Place, and then the 50 Lafayette. I mean, totally different projects, but running them in parallel and creating that floating zone would be a win-win for everyone here in the village of Suffern, if the board so chooses. Great idea. Does anyone have anything else?
Mayor, it might be completely unrelated, and I'm sure it probably is, but I'm just curious. I know that about 6 or 7 years ago, there was a proposal, and I think all the approvals were passed at the time by that board at the time, of another residential building, several hundred yards further. I guess that's northeast on Washington, the old Conserve building. What's the status of that property?
That's a good question, Mr. Magrino. Do we have an update on the Washington Muse?
Yes,
The Washington Muse.
Yes, I actually just received a call from their attorney today. They have the planning board approvals. They have site plan approval. Right now, we're just kind of in what I call the ministerial phase. They have to give me a few documents, that we approve and have to be accepted by the board. Performance bond, things of that nature. Once we have that, the map is signed. When they develop, they have a certain time frame, but it's much further along than it's been in the last 6 years, okay. I guess.
That's what I was curious. Thank you.
Yeah, it does have its approvals, and it's kind of in the home stretch, I would say, in terms of getting paper approvals. When they put a shovel in the ground, that's up to them.
I was curious because obviously it's fairly close to this, it's not right next door, but it's, not terribly far either.
Right. And then we also have the Verizon property too.
Okay. So I will be in touch with Mr. Magrino, I think, if that's okay with everyone. Thank you for the offer to share that information. And I think on behalf of our team, and by the way, Michelle Dory is also on, and Josie Adams, who is also even further east in Europe than David, so it's even closer to tomorrow for Miss Adams. And we have some of our real estate folks listening in as well. So on behalf of our team, we very much appreciate your time. We know you have very busy agendas, but really the overriding point is we want to have a partnership here and go forward in a positive way for the village and for Avon, and really move forward. And we appreciate this important step in doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Mandelbaum. And that partnership hopefully will continue for the next 100 years. Thank you. Thank you to and your team.
Thank you for everybody over in Europe and faraway lands for coming at a 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock meeting.
Yes.
I work for a French company, so I know sometimes I'm in meetings at the crack of dawn, if not earlier, and they're doing the same thing on the other side. So global is good. Global is good.
I think it's one of the few things that's positive that's come out of COVID is this ability to have these sort of meetings that are literally around the world. It's a wonderful thing that we can all participate. That's good.
And it was lovely talking to Josie. I enjoyed it.
Great.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all, folks. Stay safe, everyone.
Yes, you as well.
Good night.
Take care.
Okay. Next up is Chief Kaufer. Is the chief with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Chief.
Hi, how is everybody?
Okie dokie.
Just a few quick items on the agenda for this evening. The first item would be accepting 2 16 members, one to the Volunteer Hose Company and one to the Hook and Ladder Company. For the Hook and Ladder Company is Frank Trombetti, and from the Volunteer Hose Company is Anthony Simon.
All right.
The next item on the agenda is requesting the village accept the 2020 LoSAP final report at the April 5th meeting, which is next Monday. The 30-day posting requirement will have been met by March 31st, which is prior to the meeting, so 2 days from now. And then the last is just a question, actually, more than anything else. I would say probably about 1.5 years ago, we were in discussions with our then village attorneys about the mutual aid agreements with some Bergen County departments. Has there been any movement on any of that, or is that at a standstill?
No, Jeremy, if you want, I don't know, Mayor, if you want to answer that, but I was going to say, if you want to contact me tomorrow, we can talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, there was some, there was a draft that was proposed, so I can send that to you.
Yep, we'll follow up with that tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
And lastly, I just want to take a moment to basically thank the community and all the residents for the past week. It's been very difficult for some of us in regards to the fire in Spring Valley, where we lost a brother fireman, Jared Lloyd. But the community and the county as a whole has been unbelievable. This past Saturday, we did a road drive for 3 hours and we raised over $10,000 for this firefighter's family and his 2 young kids. So once again, I just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Mayor. I think I've probably talked to you almost every day since then for reaching out, making sure everybody's okay and we need anything. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you, and for your dedication. You know your whole team, both departments, the hook and ladder, the engine company, all the volunteers. We have to keep stressing that it's a volunteer activity, and the dedication and the commitment that your members show is unbelievable and just truly remarkable. Keep up the great work, and thank you. You have my support all the time. You know that.
Yes,
thank you.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you.
I'm not sure, is Miss Cathy Mills, are you on? I think I do see you. There you
Yes, I
are.
am. Hi, Mayor.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. Thank you.
Okay, all
So,
right.
good evening, Village Board. A few things that we have coming up. I'll give you the complete update on Monday. But what I wanted to talk about was Saturday. We had our wonderful annual Easter egg hunt, and it was a tremendous success. And I would like to send my sincere thanks to those who helped out in my absence. I heard and I saw pictures, and it was a fantastic event. A lot of happy families there. So I would like to thank Nancy, who stepped up big time to help out with the egg hunt, and Charles Sawicki, Joe Hunt, all the DPW crew who decorated the gazebo, who decorated the whole park, who decorate everything. We thank you so much. So I wasn't there, but I was there in spirit, and I'm glad that it went off so well. But I do look forward to coming back soon. The next thing that we have is Keep Rockin' Beautiful. So Keep Rockin' Beautiful will be on Saturday, May 1st, and that will coincide with Arbor Day, which we're going to celebrate on the same day. So for all of you that know, Arbor Day is usually celebrated or commemorated on the last Friday of April. So we typically wait our Keep Rockin' Beautiful to do the same day as Arbor Day. So we're going to have it on Saturday, May 1st, and we're going to have a tree planting ceremony up at Yorkshire Park. We're working with the tree committee, and Sandy and I have been working together for that. Thank you, Amy, for a proclamation for the day. We'll be able to do a proclamation and have a nice little ceremony. So Keep Rockin' Beautiful is going to be getting out there shortly. And we've always had a great response. Suffern, as I've said before, is always a huge community for Keep Rockin' Beautiful. We're able to get our residents out there, our Boy Scouts, our Girl Scouts, anyone that's interested. We'll start getting the word out this week. And, you know, it's just an opportunity for people to come out, volunteer their time to be outside. We do this more than ever. We're going to do it more socially distanced. We'll have the leader pick up the supplies, bring it back to their groups. But again, it's just a nice opportunity. We have the CSEA members who have always used their days to volunteer and help us. So we thank them for that, but it's just a great opportunity to be out in the community, help clean up Suffern. So that's May 1st. And again, hopefully everybody that is interested in helping out will come out. It's at May 1st, 9 to 12.
Cathy, if we're interested in participating, do we have to register on a website beforehand or just show up at Village Hall?
No, I'm glad you asked, Charles. So the registration is done on keeprockinbeautiful.org. So what you do is go on keeprockinbeautiful.org, and then you find the Suffern site for May 1st. You put your name in there, and then that will register you. So that the way we do registration is once it's on keeprockinbeautiful.org, then they're able to give us supplies. So like the pickers and the gloves and the bags and things, they give us those supplies according to how many people we have registered. So in the past, we had almost up to 200 people that have registered, and Keep Rockin' Beautiful supplies us all that. So keeprockinbeautiful.org is the website to register, and find the Suffern site for May 1st, and that's how you'll be registered.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you, Charles. The vaccinations at the community center, we've had 3 opportunities to have the first vaccinations. We're on the second round, and as you know, we've had employees, we had an employee date last Wednesday that they were able to use the center to do vaccinations, so we're very proud to be part of that. And now the second round of vaccinations is happening over at the center. And I think that's it for now. Again, I know there's a lot on tonight with the Avon group. I didn't thank Avon from the egg hunt, but I do want to thank them for giving us the parking lot. We were able to use the parking lot that day for people to park. So that was a great opportunity for us. So we thank them. And I also didn't, and I apologize because I wanted to make sure I mentioned our rec board members who volunteered on Saturday. I thank them very much. And we had a very special person visiting with us, Cathy Van Sickle. You know your part, and we appreciate you. And I wanted to say thank you. The best. So I wanted to thank her for being part of our egg hunt as always, and all the volunteers.
Yes, I was on the app. I have to tell you, I had the dog with me.
Right.
And so I didn't want to, needs 100 pounds, and not everybody wants a 100-pound dog hanging around them. I know you weren't there, but it was absolutely lovely. It was festive. The weather couldn't have been better. Thank goodness. This next day, not so great. So it was, you guys did a great job. They really did. It was lovely. And, everything that, the guys did to get everything together for you, you could just feel Easter for a change.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was a wonderful afternoon. And then to Jeremy and to all the firefighters, my condolences to you, all of you, for this past week, what's been happening at the fire department. So my condolences to you. Our thoughts are always with you, and we appreciate you so much. And I think that's it for me for this evening. Any questions?
Oh, great job, Cathy. Great job for the rec staff and the volunteers and everyone that was involved. They made the kids very, very happy on Saturday.
Yes.
They were really ecstatic. So great job once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Mr. Fred Rella.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
I have a few things I'd like to go over tonight. First of all, the Wayne Avenue sidewalk project. We put in for a reimbursement of $85,500 for the contractor, and that check was mailed to the village on Friday. So we should have either received it today or tomorrow. Although it's the U.S. postal system, so maybe it might be Wednesday or Thursday. Not exactly sure. We received a grant award of $125,000 for a backhoe, and that grant is being implemented through DASNY, and all the paperwork is up with DASNY. We're poised to sign the agreement with them, and then we can go out and purchase the backhoe. However, the Division of Budgets of the state of New York has put a hold on sending out any of the agreements unless it's a threat of imminent health or public safety. So right now, we got to wait for them to release that hold. And I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be, because this hold has now been on for several months, when they're going to be doing that. But once they do, all the paperwork is in and we could purchase the backhoe immediately. Okay. Parking lot B, we have grants in the amount of $172,250 to repave parking lot B. Once again, that's the parking lot across from the post office. And that's a CDBG grant. And for the CBDG projects, they have to do an environmental review. That still is not complete. That's being run by
I think we lost you, Fred.
Oh,
No, I hear him.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I can hear him fine. I hear him fine.
I didn't lose you, Fred. You're getting us money. I did not lose you.
Okay, I don't want to argue with the mayor, though. I'll talk louder. So parking lot B, the environmental review, which needs to be done for the CDBG project, it's done at the expense of the county. It doesn't come out of our grant funds, but they oversee it. So it's really out of our control. They said that they're trying to expedite it as soon as possible. So, still waiting for that to be completed. They do have the contractor for it. They just have to engage them to get it done. And then we can move forward with that. Today, I attended a webinar on CDBG COVID Cares, which is funding for COVID-related expenditures, but they're very specific. For example, you can't, you put up special barriers in front of desks in the village hall. This does not cover village hall type of expenses. Really what it's meant for like public housing, senior centers, things which are not in the normal course of business. So I'm going to review this with Mike Genito and see if I believe he's familiar with this as well. And we'll come up with a couple lists of potential projects that we could be applying for. Lastly, I see Bruce Simon is going to be giving an update on the Community Foundation. And he just asked me if I could talk a little bit about, I'm a board member of the foundation, along with several other people who are on here tonight. And he wanted me to talk about the Community Spirit Award. That's an award that we've been giving out, we being the foundation, for the past 7, 8 years to the graduating senior of our elementary schools and of the middle school and of the high school. So we pick one graduating senior in each one of these schools, and it's picked by the principal and the teachers. And the Community Spirit Award is an award where a student most embodies the characteristics of kindness, cooperation, and respect for their peers, teachers, and community. So at the graduation ceremony, they get a certificate of acknowledgement and a small monetary award as well, a gift card. And I do want to say that Cathy Mills is very helpful in this as well, in generating the certificates and the acknowledgements and helping when I can't get a hold of a principal. She knows the principals very well and make sure they get back to me. So thank you, Cathy. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you, Fred. Great update. Okay. Next to the police department, Chief Loughlin.
Good evening, board members. I just have a brief update for the board this month. So far, we've responded to approximately 830 calls for service. Beyond that, our police station renovations are still moving along pretty well. The DPW has been great with us. They've been in quite a bit and gotten a large portion of our painting completed, and our flooring installations have begun. We're in the process of finalizing our furniture quotes, which was the last major portion of the project. So we hope to move forward with that soon. The only agenda item that I have for discussion tonight is in regards to the Police Reform Collaborative based on the governor's executive order. As the board knows, we published the Village of Suffern Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative draft plan on the village's website, as well as the police department website, the police department's Facebook page, and the village's Facebook page on March 4th. We solicited public comment on the plan, and the public was permitted to submit comments up until March 22nd. In addition, we republished a plan as a reminder to our residents on March 11th and sent the plan out through the village's constant contact list. As the board members know, they were all provided with a copy of the plan for review, and I also forwarded all of the public comments to the board members so that they could review those also. The village attorney, Rob Magrino, has prepared a resolution to accept the draft plan, and the next step from the reform process would be for the board to vote on the resolution and submit the accepted plan to the New York State Budget Director on or before April 1st. That's all I have for this month, unless anyone has any questions or comments.
Well, I have a few questions, but I guess it could wait till we are ready to vote on this, or I don't know if we have to vote on this, right?
On Monday.
Yeah.
No, you have to vote tonight.
No.
Oh,
Yes.
tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be in
submitted
before
prior
April
to-
1st.
Yeah, it needs to be submitted prior to April 1st.
Yeah,
I don't
it's got to
have-
be tonight.
Mr.
They
Magr-
sent the
yeah.
resolution a while back. Or last on Friday or Saturday, I think.
Okay, I don't have the resolution in front of me. I have to go look for it. Hold on.
Chief Loughlin,
Do you have the reso, Rob? Do you have it in front of you?
I do.
Oh, maybe you could read it then. I'll
I
leave
can.
it.
I will. But do you, Steve? If you want to, if you're
Well,
prepared to do that now, Steve has. some
I
questions.
had some concerns, I just wanted to sort of bring up a few concerns. Number one, and I'm holding up the front page of I don't know if you can see it because it's kind of blurry. It's kind of, never mind, it's blurry.
Yeah,
But there's one of the brochures was published, the Rockland People's Panel on Policing. So that was a many page, like 66 page booklet. And I was a little surprised, I think is the only word I have, that on page 59 of that document, it discusses that attempts were made to contact the village of Suffern. And it says that they emailed contact to one of our lieutenants. I don't want to say the names here to, get anyone upset, but apparently that person didn't respond initially, and then they responded after that, saying that they forwarded everything to the mayor. And then this agency of Rockland tried to contact you, Mayor, and that you never replied as of February 23rd. So I'm not sure what that was all about. There was a little
So
bit
can I respond to that, Trustee
Yes.
Alpert?
Yes.
So if you as always, I'm available. I'll be more than happy to explain things to you. If you want to reach out to me, I could have went over with you. That is completely incorrect. We have emails back and forth with this organization, inviting them to our meeting. They came to the table late in the game, let's just say. We had one meeting left. We agreed to let them come and give their presentation. At the day of the meeting, we learned that they were not sending someone to the meeting and that they were going to request a separate Zoom meeting from us. We have all the emails, documentation back and forth. So the long and short of it is they were invited to our meeting upon their request. They were given an audience. They chose not to show to our meeting. So I am familiar with the document that you're speaking about.
Okay.
It's completely incorrect, and I have all of the correspondence to back that up.
Okay, that's fine, and I appreciate that. The other thing, I wanted to say there was a few, there were several comments. Some of them, they were basically Facebook comments, which were one-offs, if you will, like one line, two lines, that you don't even know if the person's a resident of Suffern, quite frankly, the way some of those comments read. But I thought there was a particularly poignant comment, and I just wanted to take the time to recognize this particular resident, Ann Murphy. Had a beautiful letter that she took the time to write. And I contemplated, I don't want to really take a lot of time because we've already spent a lot of time on other issues tonight, but I was thinking about reading the letter because I thought it was so poignant and very accurate. And, I'll basically summarize. I mean, basically, I think a lot of the proposals in the final document that's being proposed for voting are involve spending more money of the village taxpayers by the recommendation, for instance, to hire another police officer and other recommendations, hiring other community representatives and so forth. There's a lot of costs to the residents associated with a lot of the suggestions. And I personally think that the governor's executive order 203 was designed to, more so not tax residents to death, so to speak. I think that we pay a lot of taxes here in Suffern and we get fantastic services. And I think your department does an amazing job. And I want you to keep doing the amazing job you're doing because I think it's an amazing job. But at the same time, I don't think that the residents can afford to pay more than they already are.
Understood. Just to be clear, this draft is not my draft. These were recommendations that were put forward by the stakeholders that took their time to go to these meetings.
Yes.
This is not my draft. These are not my recommendations.
I'm not saying they are.
No, I just want to explain. All I did was act as the conduit to give the board the draft plan and all of the comments. So that's why I provided this to the board in advance. If the board had any changes they wanted to make to the plan, so on and so forth, this is ultimately a board decision. The board is going to, at some point, approve a draft, whether it's this draft or an amended draft, that's got to go to the director of budget. But it's ultimately the board's decision. These are just recommendations by the stakeholders that participated in these meetings.
Okay, so at this point, in other words, whatever we're approving is not necessarily binding. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that's why I provided the draft to the board.
They are binding.
I'm sorry,
It
go
is
ahead,
binding.
Bob. If you approve the draft as it is now, that's what you would be bound to. But if there's any changes or it's ultimately the board's decision what draft that they pass. That's why the draft was sent out to everyone ahead of time. So if there was any changes to be made or any recommendations, we would have that ability to do that prior to the April 1st deadline.
Yeah.
I have two questions then. Chief Loughlin, I'd like to ask you about body cameras. Do you like that idea?
I feel that the body cameras are an excellent program, both for the public and the police department. They show it's transparency for the public, it's transparency for the police department. I think they're an excellent tool.
Okay. I've lived all my life without police having cameras on them, so
it's a different world these days. Things are evolving quickly.
Sure.
I know it was the previous chief. I once asked him or inquired about the possibility of that, and he rebuffed the idea. So I'm glad to see that you're in favor of it.
We already use a dash cam system in the cars. The downside to the dash cam system is it's only going to capture your traffic stops and anything that's going on either in front of the car or within range of the microphone of the car. You know, when we're inside people's houses or inside of an establishment, the dash cam is not going to show what a body cam would show. You know, the body cam is going to be with the officer all of the time. But I could tell you that the Northeast is one of the last places in the country that's, we were a little bit slow to implement the body camera systems. Most of the rest of the country is already using them. I think whether it happens now or happens a year from now, I think it's going to be the norm in our profession.
Yeah. Well, I just think it protects everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving on to my question number 2, the idea of anonymous calling. I discussed it with my family, and it's also in the letter that Ann Murphy wrote. Anonymous calling, as we discussed it in my family, has been used by the FBI and other places very successfully. On the other hand, it seems to be a terrible thing in that it can cast aspersions on somebody and certainly use up your resources, because you would have to investigate all these anonymous, which is so easy to do by anybody, statements or claims. And what do you think? Do you think anonymous calling is really, in the end, a good thing?
The thinking behind, and I'm speaking on behalf of the stakeholders, and I know Bruce Simon, who was one of our stakeholders, is on the meeting. If he would like to, jump in, he's, I would have no issue with that. I think the thinking behind this and the idea behind this is, the members of the public that, would like to make a complaint against the police department or a certain officer may feel leery to do that for whatever reason, kind of like, you're complaining to the people that you're complaining about. The idea of an anonymous complaint would allow people to make, personnel complaints against the police. And just the idea behind it is for us to investigate those complaints, to take them seriously and investigate them as best as possible. I do understand your concern with, could it tax our resources more with, us looking into things that, it's very easy to make a frivolous anonymous complaint. But on the other hand, somebody that may have a legitimate complaint may feel leery about coming forward and complaining to the police. And this gives them the avenue to do that without identifying themselves.
I didn't realize, by the way, until now, that the anonymous complaints are only about the police department. I thought perhaps that the public was going to have the right to make an anonymous complaint about me or the mayor or you, or you know what I mean? Anybody.
When we, as it is now, calls for service, law enforcement calls for service, we accept anonymous complaints, which is every police department accepts anonymous calls. There's many times callers will call us and report an issue and decline to identify themselves. We still need to obviously investigate those calls.
When someone calls in, let's say then about your department and gives a complaint, are you supposed to make it public or make it public to us, the board, or do you just keep it your own secret?
So no, we don't keep it a secret. We have so for those of you that don't know, we're an accredited agency, which means we have to meet approximately 110 standards set forth by New York State, the accreditation board. Part of that process is we have to have it's a quite robust complaint policy and procedure, which is followed. So to answer your question, depending on the severity of the complaint, a complaint could be anything from, maybe an officer was rude, all the way up to, a person could allege an officer committed a crime against them. So depending on the severity of the complaint would depend on what the complaint process is put into classes. Depending on the severity of the complaint would depend on what agencies are involved. Anything that's reported to us where there's alleged criminal conduct, it's an automatic trigger. We automatically notify the district attorney's office so they can be involved with the complaint from day one. If it's something I don't want to say trivial, but if it's something as small as maybe someone wasn't happy with the outcome of their call, or someone felt the officer maybe was rude to them, that's typically handled internally. That's not something that we would typically go to the board for every time somebody came in and said, maybe weren't happy with the way that their call ended.
All right. So in other words, for what you consider serious, it always has to go to the district attorney, but it doesn't get shared with anybody else, like the board, like the trustees, or.
Well, if there was, anytime there would be disciplinary action, the board of trustees would be involved with that.
Yeah, that's on those occasions, yes.
Correct.
All right, so it's limited to the district attorney or perhaps just you if it's minor, like rudeness.
Minor, what we call technical violations are typically handled within the department.
Yeah.
Anything that would rise to a level where an officer may be disciplined or a criminal level, obviously the board would be made aware of that, as well as outside agencies such as a district attorney or, another agency that would have jurisdiction over whatever offense is alleged.
Well, I find that very reassuring because I hate to think that people can make anonymous remarks and they go public in any way. They do not at the beginning go public, obviously. When I say public, they're not shared with the trustees or the mayor or, with the district attorney, yes, but they don't get shared outside of your department except with the district attorney, except when it becomes a matter where it really involves us, the trustees.
Right, that's the long and short of it. What I can do is email the board our actual disciplinary and investigation policy, so you can all take a look at it for yourselves and read over the policy and see exactly what the criteria are.
Okay, thanks for the education.
You're welcome.
Chief, do you want me to say anything more about it?
If you have anything to add, absolutely.
Sure. This was not taking anything away because we all agreed on the final draft, but this was something that I felt very strongly about. My concern was that Fred, Steve, Joe, Charlie, this is not something that would be easy. If somebody had a serious complaint about one of our officers, it might not be easy for that person to go down into the police department and confront somebody in a uniform to complain about somebody else in a uniform. Not everybody has the kind of force of will to do that kind of thing. So the point of the anonymous complaint ability was that somebody wouldn't be kept from making the complaint because they didn't feel that they were able to go down. They were worried that they wouldn't be heard, that they were worried that they wouldn't be taken seriously in a face-to-face. This way they can start it, and then the investigation happens, whether it's an internal thing for something on the relatively minor side, not to say anything is little, but something that didn't rise to a criminal level. And the chief stressed to us during the meetings, if anything was serious enough, it would go right to the district attorneys and they would be taken out of it. So there could be no favoritism. There could be no kind of view of, oh, they're protecting their own. That was never the case. That was never part of our decision-making process.
I have a question related to that. I'm actually in favor of the ability to take anonymous complaints because I agree there's some people that might feel that there could be what do you call that, retribution if they make a complaint. That might be a legitimate complaint that someone might do something against them. But having said all that, sometimes people might want to make a complaint anonymously, but at the same time be able to follow up on that complaint and find out, was something done? Is there any procedure in effect where they could be given like maybe a code number or something that they're not, I'll make up a name, John Smith. They're not John Smith because they're anonymous, but they're number A25734. And then if they call back, they can say, yes, I'm A27354. I'd like to get an update on this case that I submitted. Is there any way or any plan that might be in effect to allow people to follow up on their complaints, even if it was anonymous?
So currently in our policy, there is a procedure to notify complainants of their, the outcome of their complaint investigation. For anonymous complaints, currently, there's nothing in there because this is something new that we're introducing right now.
Okay.
The idea behind this, the anonymous complaints, as well as if you review the draft, we're trying to make this more transparent and trying to make it easier for people to make complaints. Part of the draft is we will accept complaints, through our website, online, electronically, mail, pretty much any way you could possibly make a complaint. We're going to accept that complaint and investigate it to the best of our ability. Is it something we could do? Yes, probably it is something we could do. I don't see why we couldn't assign, an anonymous complaint and some type of tracking number and so on and so forth. But again, this is all before the board to approve now. So if this was approved, it would be something that we would have to draft and amend our policy for. But I think it's something that probably could be done.
I'm in favor of something like that, but is this something, if we approve tonight, what's already presented, Is this something that we could revisit and amend as time permits?
Amend the complaint process, you're saying?
Yeah, for instance, in other words.
Yeah, if all the only thing that the draft speaks of is basically the ability to accept anonymous complaints, how we can accept the complaints, the different forms, the different ways that they could submit them. But no matter what happens, there's going to be policy changes, assuming that the board were to go forward and approve even that portion of the draft, that would take policy change on our part. We would have to, review our rules and regulations, change the policies, that tie into those areas. So to add the short answer to your question is yes, there would be policy changes, and that it is something that we could add to the policy if the board so chose.
I know I for one would be in favor.
Steve, if I may jump in, I think the way to look at this, this is the beginning, not the end. Okay, so
Right.
it's really, this is the plan. There's
It's a working
some
document.
items in there going forward, some action items. It doesn't mean those are the only action items. So I think, as I said, that's the best way to describe it. This is the beginning, not the end of this.
I have a question for Chief Loughlin. Follow up on Steve's good comments. If somebody, let's say, sent an anonymous phone call or letter and gave you information, and at the end of it, they said, this is John Smith, and I will be following up and calling you about it to find out what you learned. And if they call the police department from their cell phone anonymously saying, hello, this is John Smith, and I want to speak to the chief, would you take that call, and would you speak to them?
I would always take the call, but obviously this is something that has to be looked into a bit more than it's not as simple as that on its face, because obviously if it's something that's going to go somewhere or something that's, a founded complaint, number one, you need to know the identity of the person that you're speaking to. I mean, we're not just going to answer the phone and say, oh, this is so-and-so and give out information. That's not a good practice. So again, we would have to look into policy, draft policy. There's many different resources available to craft these type of policies and things like that. So the simple answer is yes, it's something that could be done, but it's not as simple as just saying, oh yeah, I'll answer the phone and tell the person,
Well, I know you're going to work on it, so that sounds good.
And just to expound a little bit on what Fred said, let's say someone says, I would like to file this anonymous complaint, but then they do sign their name at the end. I mean, I hope that name would be stripped if they said the word, I would like to file this anonymous complaint, even though they put their name,
Well, personnel complaints are not, they're not shared with anyone. They're not shared with other members of the department. That's all handled administratively. And again, there's a completely separate policy on how internal affairs are handled. So like I said, with the accreditation process, we're held to, 110 standards that are nationally recognized law enforcement best practices. So these are the way that we're currently operating. We've been operating since, we were first accredited in 2009. We're meeting those standards. So there's, it's a very robust, our policy manual is, hundreds and hundreds of pages long. So to answer your question, if someone were to make a complaint and say, this is, Andy Loughlin, I want to complain about this person, that is not shared with anyone except for who is, investigating that complaint.
Right. But I was saying if they said the words, I'm trying to make an anonymous complaint, but they happen to include their name, that's all.
That would remain confidential.
Right.
It's confidential and anonymous.
Right. Okay. That's all I wanted to clarify.
I believe the majority of the police reform and reinvention collaborative is geared towards the police departments that were not accredited agencies, where we have those high standards in place already, which the chief and the stakeholders that were involved in this collaborative are just strengthening.
Right.
So I think it's a step in the right direction. And it's the beginning, not the end, as Mr. Magrino stated.
And just to clarify, in case there's any miscommunication, I think the police are doing a fantastic job. And I agree with some of the emails we received that said they're doing a great job. Why do we need to change anything? So they're doing a great job, but there's always room for improvement. And I think that's what this is about. And I'd like to just make sure that what we add and what we do improves things, But again, I do add that extra layer. I don't want to see additional costs passed on to village residents. I'd like to see some way we could do it more economically, whatever it is that we need to do.
And that was
I'd like-
something we discussed at length with the stakeholders, and Bruce can probably speak to this. We explained this is something that we were mandated to do by the executive order. Every police department in the entire New York State was mandated to do this. It gave us an opportunity to look at ourselves and to have some people from the outside look at us and say, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we do better? We made it clear, in a perfect world, we would have all the resources that we want, but these things, come at a cost. Staffing, equipment, there's a cost involved with that kind of thing. So it was something that, all the stakeholders, I think, were serious about. They're all village residents. So it is something that, did come up multiple times throughout our meetings. It wasn't something that we, glossed over in any way.
It does say very clearly in the document, yes, there's things we want like body cams, but if the state is going to mandate that, which we were not opposed to, and which you heard the chief say he's not opposed to, if the state is going to mandate that, the state needs to pay for it. We were not putting another bill on the backs of our taxpayers.
No, and I just want to make sure that that's an underlying concept, if
Clearly in the document, Steve.
No, I read it. I read the whole document and I saw that, but I was concerned, for instance, there was discussion in the document about, having a community officer, for instance, full-time, but that's an expense. Again, that's an expense to the residents unless there's some other way to fund it by taking from some other, aspect of what's being done to pay for that. That's all. I don't want to see more money being spent.
Understood. And neither did we.
Okay.
Okay, any further?
I want to thank everybody who worked on this, and thank you for Steve and Fred, your input. But I think everybody really worked hard and really looked at the issues. And, we don't have some of the issues that other places do, thank goodness, and very happily, have to report that. But I think everyone's effort was amazing. And I know it was a long couple of weeks and actually a couple of months. And I think the document proves to that. And I'm glad that it's a working document. A go forward working document.
I was happy with the document that was presented to me. Thank you, everyone who worked on it and produced such a good piece of work.
I'd just like to add, the stakeholders all did this on a purely volunteer basis. They put a lot of time in, not only going to the meetings, but, I sent them tons of information, tons of documents. You could tell they were all doing their own research and their own due diligence on their own time. So, they really, really should be commended and recognized for the effort that they put in.
And just to let the public know that the stakeholders that were involved were Suffern-based residents, community leaders, religious leaders, and business owners in the village of Suffern. And they truly do have a stake here in the village of Suffern. I thank them also. And Chief, of course, you and Lieutenant Martinez did a fabulous job.
Thank you.
In putting together the meetings.
That was my point.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, great. So are we ready to move forward with the resolution?
I am.
Okay. Mr. Magrino, if you can present the resolution, please.
Sure. Says whereas executive order, whereas pursuant to New York State Governor or Executive Order 203 issued on June 12th, 2020, the governor required every local government which has a police entity to perform a comprehensive review of current police force deployments, strategies, policies, procedures, and practices, and to develop a plan for improvement as set forth more fully in EO 203, which is incorporated herein by reference. And whereas EO 203 required each chief executive of such local government to convene the head of the local police agency and stakeholders in the community to develop such plan in accordance with the requirements of EO 203. And whereas the mayor, as chief executive of the village, has undertaken to coordinate with the chief of police and local stakeholders to develop a plan in accordance with the directives of EO 203. And whereas a police reform and reinvention committee was formed, its membership consisting of residents and community members, elected officials from the village of Suffern and county of Loughlin, and representatives from the Suffern Police Department, Rockland County District Attorney's Office, Rockland County Public Defender's Office, Suffern PBA, and which held meetings on December 7th, 2020, January 5th, 2021, January 26th, 2021, and February 9th, 2021. Participated in informational presentations from the Rockland County District Attorney's Office and the Rockland County Public Defender's Office, and created a written plan entitled The Village of Suffern Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Plan, published the plan in its draft form, and invited public questions and comments via email. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the village board hereby adopts the Village of Suffern Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Plan dated March 29th, 2021, as prepared in accordance with the New York Governor Executive Order 203, and authorizes the mayor to transmit a certification to the New York State Director of the Division of Budget, certifying that the process set forth in EO 203 has been complied with, and that this resolution has been adopted accepting such plan.
Do I have a motion to that resolution?
Motion, trustee Barone.
Trustee Barone.
Second, trustee Corrigan.
Trustee Corrigan, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes. Thank you again, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Outstanding job.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Mr. Bruce Simon for the Community Foundation update.
You missed me?
We did.
Very briefly, most of what I'll do is on Monday. We're gonna talk about not just Battery Saturday, which is April 24th. We'll give an update on the Suffern Marathon. The biggest thing I want to talk about tonight, besides thanking Fred and Cathy for their work on the Community Spirit Awards, which they do every year and they do a great job on. We lost one of our members recently. Connie Hernowitz was a longtime member of the Community Foundation. I know some people here on the meeting knew her. Her husband had also been a member some years ago before he passed. We are all deeply saddened by her loss, and I was hoping that I could have the board either open Monday's board meeting or close Monday's board meeting in her memory and in her honor.
Perfect.
Sure, we can open the meeting in her honor. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everything else I have to say will happen on Monday.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, moving along. Mr. Genito in the budget update.
Yes, Mayor and Board, thank you. Basically, you know that the tentative budget was submitted or transmitted to the village board by the mayor on March 19th. And we have to have a public hearing prior to April 15th. Given that the board is going to probably be discussing the budget along with certain changes they may wish to make prior to that public hearing, I'm recommending that the public hearing be held April 12th, 2021, and that we would have to have a resolution to set the public hearing tonight so that we could have it whatever date in April that you wish, but I would recommend April 12th.
April 12th is the second Monday of April. Okay, does anyone have any conflicts with that?
I think so. I'm good.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so we need to set that date now. So make a motion to set a public hearing for budget hearing on April 12th at 7 p.m.
I so move by Fred Sauberman, trustee.
Trustee Sauberman, do I have a second?
Second, trustee Alpert.
Trustee Alpert. Any further discussion? Trustee Sauberman, I'm sorry. Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Any opposed? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Mr.
Okay, Mayor,
Genito.
on the rest of the budget calendar, by the way, The budget must be adopted on or before May 1. April 30th is a Friday. So I'm going to recommend that the tentative calendar at least shows that the budget would be adopted by April 30th. And with that, as I've said in years prior, we'd like to have all the final revisions to the budget in by April 23rd to my office. That is anything that would be amended by the village board to the tentative budget. That gives us sufficient time to run the numbers back through the system into the document. We check with the assessor to make sure that anything's affected by the tax assessment, and it gives us time to publish a document and have it ready for you to vote on April 30th.
April 30th.
Now, between now and April 30th, or April 23rd, I should say, the board should set a few meetings to discuss the budget. We don't necessarily have to do that tonight. You can discuss it among yourselves and come up with a plan. And then I would suggest that we would have discussion on the budget with whatever you'd like, department heads or particular areas. As I've always recommended in the past, by all means, shoot me the questions by email. More than happy to look up the information so everybody has it when we go to meet. And I'll leave it at that. We don't have to do that tonight, but it's something that should be done so that there's at least a couple of sessions prior to we make the final changes.
And we can organize those dates via email, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, yes, there's no reason why not.
Okay, that sounds like the most efficient plan.
Okay, so that's pretty much on the budget. Just a couple of the quick things that we have that we're working on in the finance department. The Office of State Comptroller is going through the review of the tentative budget at this time. They started about a week ago. We've been providing them with all the necessary information that they need. And I understand that they're pretty much through the revenue side of things and are going into the appropriation side of things starting tomorrow. A couple other things that we have. There's a program that's a partner with NICOM, New York Conference of Mayors. It's known as NIMEP. Don't ask me what it stands for, but it's an energy. It's basically you can buy your gas, natural gas and electricity through another supplier, as anybody can do. But what this does is, since they work with NICOM, they happen to be a national company that will go out and get you the lowest prices. And they work with, as I say, NICOM. And then we basically will sign an agreement with them to get the lowest possible prices of gas and electric. So we're going to be signing off on that. I'm going to run it through our village attorneys just to make sure everything looks good on the document. Along with that, they also have a program which some of you may have heard about. It's called a community aggregate program. And they have this actually in Westchester County, but it's pretty much run by the county over there. And over here in Rockland County, the county itself does not have one. But we, the village of Suffern, could. And what the community aggregate program does is the same savings that we could get on gas and electric utilities, it can be offered to our residents. And there's more involved with that. Of course, this program would require the board not only to have a resolution, but to also have pass a local law, and residents can opt into it. There's nothing forcing them. But what the company would do is get from Orange and Rockland, in our case, the customer's information so that they could mail out to them the opportunity to partake in this community aggregate program. But once again, there's nothing that the village needs to do that's going to be expensive or involve us to spend money or to manage it. It will all be managed by NIMEP. So, but
Mike,
you'll hear more about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there an option where we could opt in for the electricity to get greener power? Is that a choice?
I can certainly ask that question of NIMEP. I'm not sure if that is. Generally, my experience, if you're going to go quote with a greener choice, you do pay a bit more for your electricity than if you went just with a whatever supplier is going to give you the best price.
Well, we did make a commitment to be a greener village.
We also made a commitment not to cost taxpayers too much money, so. Conflicting commitments, but that's certainly something the board can discuss. I will check out that information with NIMAP.
I had one question, Mr. Genito.
Sure.
If it's something that would ultimately potentially become available to residents, which I think is a great thing, if it's a good deal, if more residents were to sign up, would that, because there's more users, that sort of thing, would that potentially lower the price for everyone, or the price is the price? I mean, how would that kind of work?
No, the price is the price, as they say. Basically, what happens is NIMAP, and by the way, there's other companies out there that do this. I'm sure you've all received in the mail somebody that says, I can get you better pricing on your supply for natural gas and electricity, not distribution, because that has to be handled by Orange and Rockland, but the actual supply cost. There are many vendors that go out and do that sort of service. This particular vendor happens to have a lot of national contacts. And so what they end up doing is getting best possible prices based on a huge amount of natural gas and electric customers. And because of that, they have their prices. They're not fixed prices, by the way. The prices will fluctuate with the market, but they will still fluctuate in terms of always getting the best price.
Right. The reason I ask also, just for whatever it's worth, as you said, we've all received letters from other carriers that, that want to sell us electricity or gas in lieu of Orange and Rockland. But ironically, I've always run the numbers. I mean, I've lived in my house 30 years and I've received hundreds of these documents in the mail. I always run the numbers. And even though these companies are claiming they'll cost less, when you actually factor everything in and know that one of the biggest costs is the actual energy delivery, which Orange and Rockland is doing themselves, it's not really necessarily a good deal. In other words, so far Orange and Rockland has been the best, but I'm always looking to look at other options.
Well, I can tell you that the village has been involved in buying energy from other suppliers, and they've gone through a couple of different companies that have gotten us prices, and they will typically work on a contract basis that says we'll give you so much of a price. What we have found is, yes, they actually do save money on the supply. I think what you probably are seeing in your bill is that the cost of supply as a percentage of your total bill is not really that great. So you're probably getting savings, but they're not significant savings.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you know this, but Orange and Rockland happens to be one of the highest supply costs in the country. And
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And so that's in Con Ed as well in the general area. Now, what we have found is that, again, they go out and they get these bids on the lowest possible price. And so that's where the benefit is in terms of the market for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm always in favor to see, if someone could beat the price, that's great.
Great.
Okay, so we'll get more information on the community aggregate program, but for Monday's meeting, we might actually have a resolution just about, we don't really have to have one, I don't believe, but we'll probably get a resolution for signing off with NIMAP to be able to buy our gas and electric from them. And by the way, one last thing, when they do go out to bid, it's almost like when you bid insurance. If your book of business is big, which theirs is, it's very big because it's national, you generally are going to get better pricing than somebody who has a smaller book of business for the area. So that's what we have for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Mike.
Department of Public Works, Mr. Sawicki.
Charles, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There you go. Yes.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you so much. All right, I'd like to provide the board with an update. The Hedging Architectural Group has started the Village Hall building assessment this week. A draft report will be available for the May meeting. The Wayne Avenue sidewalk project will resume within the next month. And the tree crown reduction work was completed last week. So moving to the agenda, be requesting authorization to solicit bids for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project contract 2, which would be due on May 20th, 2021 at 3 p.m. The next item is the awarding water department chemical purchase orders to Coin Chemicals, JCI Jones Chemical, and Slack Chemical Company. The next item is Delaware Engineering Amendment number 3 for construction phase services for contract 1 in the amount of $300,000. I believe Robert Flores has joined us in the meeting, and he could elaborate a little bit and answer any specific questions you might have. Rob, are you on?
Robert, you should be able to.
There we go.
I'm on.
Get on.
Okay, all right, great. So go ahead if you want to summarize the amendment number 3 for construction phase services.
Right. So our contract started with a report phase, and then it got amendment to include the design phase, which is what we're at the end of now. Completed design, and that's why we're going out to bid. So where we are now is we're moving into the construction phase. And as you know, we received bids for contract 1, and we have 3 prime contractors there. And for contract 2, we expect to have 2 prime contractors. And the duration of construction for contract 1, on-site construction is expected to be 10 months. And so we have proposed full-time construction observation services during that construction. And we have the support of the engineers and project managers, and everybody that gets involved. It's included in the proposal. I don't know if, how much, if anybody has any questions. There's quite a bit involved in this project. As you know, it's quite significant and there's a lot going on.
So Robert, I was actually going to suggest that we hosted like an hour and a half meeting so that you can do a presentation and a status of all the engineering and everything that you're doing for the board members and the public, so that everybody understands all the work that's getting done.
That's a real good idea, because it is a very significant project, and there's big investment in your infrastructure, which desperately needs it. It solves issues you have with the DEC.
I mean, I'm on the weekly meetings, but I think it's important for everybody to understand exactly what's going on. So I think that, maybe on Thursday's meeting, we can figure out a couple of dates, and then maybe we can shoot it out to the board and see what works best for them.
Yeah, great idea.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Trustee Meegan-Corrigan, I would just make the suggestion that when you do have a date and time set, that we set that meeting through the village's Zoom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just to make sure that it's recorded and open to the public, et cetera.
Oh, no, that's exactly the point. For sure. Like that for trustees and all the public. Yeah, we want everyone to understand.
Okay, that's a great idea. Okay, so we'll manage that on Thursday. And then what else? Does the board have any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Flores.
Thank you. Good to see everybody.
Okay, so just moving on to the next item agenda, or the next item on the agenda, requesting authorization to issue an RFP for the inventory and mitigation assessment of village trees. So this would be, we had some discussion last meeting, or I believe it was the last couple meetings.
Yeah.
So what we'd be doing here would be to put an RFP together, and we would do an inventory and a mitigation assessment. We wouldn't be actually doing the mitigation work, but we would establish what the mitigation requirements would be on the trees within the village. Now, we're unsure on how the dollars will come in, so I'm going to set that the RFP in such a fashion that we could do a portion of the work and pay for it this budget year, and a portion of it after June 1st and pay for it, if need be, next budget year. And that would be coming out of the shade tree line. So just, do you have any questions regarding that?
No, good. Anyone else?
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I think, yeah. Okay. I think that's it for me. Any questions?
Charles, so is this is related to what Sandy Stead was discussing at one of the last meetings? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're right. That's right. So,
she had a preliminary estimate where it sounded like it was less than 1 year's worth of the typical shade tree budget. I could be mistaken.
Yeah, we actually had we had our tree committee meeting just about a week and a half ago or so, and Sandy had some discussion with one of the arborists, and based on the number of lane miles within the village, it was determined just approximately that there was about 3,000 trees in the village. That whether that number is accurate or not, I have no idea. But it's really going to depend on the number of trees that we have, and we currently have a certain dollar amount left in the budget for this year. We're going to try to utilize that towards this effort. Right. And if we need to, if we don't have enough money to complete the entire project, we could break it in 2 phases and complete it within the budget year of 2022.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Okay. And is there any other questions?
Charles, you said we have it in our budget to pay for this year's inventory?
Yeah, we have a balance of approximately, after we just completed the crown reduction work, we should have about $15,000, give or take, to get this work done this year. And we obviously need to make it, see how the bids come in, and we would establish it per. Again, I have to look at how we would finalize the structure of the RFP, but I would do it per 1,000 trees, and then maybe a subcategory or an ad alternate for 500 trees, or an ad alternate for 100 trees. I just need to look at that yet and finalize that portion of it. But that's how we would structure it, so that we would try to get as many trees completed with the amount of money that we have currently, and then complete the rest within the next year's budget.
So if the estimate came back, just for argument's sake, I think Sandy had said something like $13,000 was the number she was, roughly quoted. That would be under the $15,000, and that would be able
right.
budget.
I got numbers that were just budget estimates that were much higher than that. So We'll have to see actually how the numbers come in.
Okay.
And if we can get them all done, then we will.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, hello.
Yes.
There you go, Mr. Magrino. I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you.
Got me nervous. I thought it was my turn, and I
No, it was me.
All right. Okay, so the first one, accepting the police reform, we've already taken care of. Second item I have is the 2021 Hallett Place Agreement. I'll be asking for a resolution next week authorizing, that's an agreement, authorizing the signing of that agreement. That's an agreement between the village and the county regarding the commuter parking at the Hallett Place lot. It's an agreement we've done for many years. 50 Lafayette, I kind of gave an update earlier, but again, I'll just address it. What the owners of 50 Lafayette basically petitioned for a zone change, and not the TDD that was already existing. They wanted a new zone. So what they presented, frankly, was not, shall we say, ripe for the board to vote on, you know, and looking at it and getting into the details. I've taken what they provided. As I indicated earlier, myself, John Lang, Steve Conley, and the mayor have all been working on basically a TOD floating zone for consideration by the board in the CB and the GB districts. The reasoning was because what was presented by the applicant at 50 Lafayette, again, was not really something that the board, you know, was in a position, I felt, for the board to vote on. So I did get John Lang's final comments yesterday. I'm going to continue to look at them. I'll get something to the board to review before the meeting on Monday. And again, it may be that the board wants some changes. This is something we're putting together. It may be something the board is fine with and sends it out, but it would be a proposed floating zone in the GB and CB districts for transit-oriented development.
So, I'm sorry, Rob. So the expectation is that we vote on Monday?
The vote would be just to circulate it. I will have a proposed law.
Oh, okay.
It would
Got
just be, here's a proposed law.
Okay,
They
perfect.
wish to change it or make changes before we circulate it. It would be the process for starting the process for adopting a local law.
Perfect. Thank you.
And and again, even if it's sent out, it may come back, you may get comments and, you know, changes,
Yep,
decide to do
I
it,
get it.
et cetera. It's the process. So that's where we're at on
Okay.
that. And then the last thing, if nobody had any questions on those other three, was designating a FOIL appeals officer. Richard Glickel worked on that. I think he's here if you want to jump in. We're going to have a resolution, I guess, next week with respect to that. Richard, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, bro. Very simply, on March 1st, the board had voted to amend the local law, Chapter 213, to allow the board to designate the village attorney or the village attorney's assistant or designate to serve as the FOIL appeals officer. And that's basically what the very short resolution recites.
Okay. That's good. And then the last thing on the attorney was the ROA, Rob, if you wanted to discuss the record of activities.
Right. For elected and appointed officials, I believe we received a memo from the state indicating they wanted updated record of activities. I believe everyone who was required to do that received an email from the village clerk. I know certainly, you know, Mr. Sauberman is just starting in November. Would do it if you want to participate in the retirement system. There were several other folks. What I would ask is everybody to submit those to the village clerk this week, and there'll be a resolution for consideration by the board just to accept the record of activities, which is part of the you know, requirements of the state pension system.
I don't think I got that. And I don't think I got it from the beginning. Can I also get that as well?
Right. What you're supposed to do is do a 3-month, you know, keep a chart for 3 months of your activities.
Yeah.
If you have that, great. If you don't, again, it can, you know, we can extend it at least and speak to them about extending it if folks didn't get a chance to do it or weren't notified. I'll defer to Amy. I'm not sure if they asked, if the state asked for specific people or it was positions that they asked for, but does anyone have-
No, I just sent it out to anyone who was on the list of being eligible. The board members received 2 notices.
Okay. So again, we'll take a look.
Amy, I'm sorry.
That's
Can you
okay.
just-
I will, Joe. I'll send it to you tomorrow again, and we can always extend it.
No, I have everything written down. That wouldn't be a problem, but I don't remember seeing it from last November.
No, I
So,
didn't send it in November. I sent it out in January.
Right. I'm saying November because when you start a new term, I'm just.
Correct. Yeah, I know.
Actually, I should have said December because the term doesn't start until December.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Amy.
You're welcome.
Amy, send that to me too. This is Fred Sauberman.
One to Mr.
Yes.
Sauberman.
Fred, if you want, I can give you a call and we can go over it since this is your first time.
Okay,
All right.
I'll come in and see you.
Okay,
That's good.
great.
That's perfect. Okay, very good. Also, anything else, Mr. Magrino?
That's all I had.
Okay, we'll also be accepting on Monday evening the letter of retirement for retirement purposes from Craig Long. And then if the board so chooses, we would like to reappoint Mr. Craig Long as the village historian, and he will not be participating in the retirement system. So that would be on for Monday.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to make, trustees, I'm sorry, I skipped over you. Is there anything from the trustees?
I have a couple of things. I'll
Okay.
try and be quick. I know it's been a long meeting. First of all, my heart goes out greatly to firefighter Lloyd and his family. And my dad was a firefighter as a volunteer and close and dear to my heart. I don't even have words for that, what that family must be going through. And I think every single volunteer firefighter that goes out there every day, no matter what time, and just gets the job done. So before I get too emotional, I'm going to move on a little bit because it's a little close to my heart. One of the things I was thinking about is, we have an RFP that have been talking about with JOC, and there's a couple of things that I'd like to talk about with that tonight. I know we have a brand new 3A operator, Aramis Morris. Thank you so much for being diligent and getting through it and kicking on that test. So I'm wondering if that's, who we're gonna kind of fill that 3 operator with in the near future. My other question is, I know that back in December, JCO has offered to give us an $8,000 a month credit. We haven't discussed it, kind of waiting for that to come to fruition. And if we can get in line with that, I understand that we can't get a PAC credit, but it would sure be nice to get the credit till at least back from December where it was offered and we didn't take them up on it. That's a substantial credit back to the village that we're just not taking advantage of. And if they're offering to do it, I'm not quite sure why we're not doing it. And my other question on the sewer system, which we'll go into more, I know it's been a long meeting, so I'm just kind of blowing through these pretty quick, is the JCO numbers on the new budget. Is it with the amended price that they gave us back in December that we haven't taken on yet? So I guess that's more of a question for Mike, and I didn't get a chance to call him today. Actually, I didn't get a chance to make a couple of phone calls this week.
So let's discuss it. We'll discuss it during the week. This coming week, give me a call. We'll discuss those 3.
Sure, I'll be happy.
You have.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would like for the budget is, back in the day, we used to have worksheets, and I think Charles may have included them today in an email. I would really, it just makes it so much easier to get through the budget when we have those worksheets. So if every department head could please send those budgets to the entire board, it kind of makes that a little bit easier to go through the budget and sort of identify.
Trustee, this is Mike Genito.
Uh-huh.
I think you all should have received from me, in addition to the budget document, two other documents. One was a Excel version of
Yeah.
every single line item in every budget.
Correct.
And the other one was the a PDF document, which had all the details in it.
You know what? I may have not have opened up the PDF, Mike, and I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, because
I went through all the other, I hadn't realized, I just assumed that the Excel was a PDF version of that.
And,
So
and
you're
I think
saying
what
that the work-
I'm sorry, I don't know if I got something different than what you received from Charles, but what I saw Charles send out earlier today was some recommended changes to the original budget request he
Yes.
made, but it's only a certain set number of lines.
Right.
The original documents that they submitted, all the departments,
Mhm.
I hand out the worksheets to them and they put in the numbers, and then they sometimes will add a memo with some additional information on it.
Right.
I can certainly send those to you, but in terms of
Yeah.
the numbers that appear on those sheets, they're not complete because they don't have things like utilities in there and things that they wouldn't necessarily deal with, like the salaries and benefits. The only thing we ask them to put in there is the overtime, or
Right.
if they give us a memo with a recommended promotion or something like that. And
Correct.
then my office is the one that actually goes back to the contracts and the other arrangements for pay to come up with the actual salaries. So, I can certainly send the original request that they submitted. But again,
That
they're
would
not going to
be
be
great.
totally complete, but that's fine. No problem.
Yes, if it's not too much work, it kind of puts all the pieces of the puzzle together.
It's never too much work.
I'm not trying to give you too much work, Mike. And then the other thing, which I'll follow up with Rob tomorrow, is I would like to get a resolution put together that the Board of Trustees have the right to add comments or postings or emails or whatever they choose to the village website, the village Facebook page, and also the newsletter, as long as it is adding responsible, non-offensive, and true statements. And it should be posted by the village clerk and or the rec department, whatever works best, or however the process flows, because I know different letters and different things have to go through different processes that will not be censored by the mayor. So that's all I have for tonight. And Rob, I'll call you tomorrow so that we can work those details out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there any update as to anything that is happening with our police contract, which expires May 31st?
Not at this time. The negotiations have not started.
All right, so are the negotiations starting soon?
I've been reviewing the police contract itself. We're waiting to hear from the PBA to see if they would like to start negotiations.
Okay, well, may we see those documents?
What documents?
What you're reviewing and what you're thinking.
I'm reviewing the PBA contract that is in place.
Okay.
So you want that document? You want the PBA contract?
I believe I already have it.
Okay, great.
Okay, I didn't realize that's what you were doing. Okay.
I think, just to add to that, I think, Mayor, you had suggested, or it was something that came up at a previous meeting, that there would be discussions perhaps among the board about maybe getting ducks in a row so we all kind of know what we'd like to see in the contract, before we even present anything or have a point of presenting to the
Correct. And
negotiating unit.
you do have a copy of the contract, is that?
Yes.
Oh, the board does, yes. So that's the way we did leave it, that we were all going to review the contract and see what changes we wanted to implement into the contract. We were going to have Mr. Glickel also review the contract and then provide that input to him and see if we can develop a new contract that we can present. That's where we left it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to go into.
Before we do that, I had a couple things I wanted to say. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Go ahead.
I was cutting into Charles's time. I just wanted to follow up on what he said. I did have one or two things. First, I want to thank everyone on the board, including the mayor, for signing on to the letter from Alejandra Silva Exius that involved getting a site in Rockland County for all the residents to have an opportunity here in Rockland to get a vaccination for COVID-19. I think this was a great undertaking that was done by the county, and we all signed on to, every one of us. It was unanimous here on the board, and I wanted to take a moment to thank Alejandra for spearheading that movement. It was successful, and
it was so lovely talking to her again.
Yeah.
She's just an amazing, and her husband's doing well.
And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And for the benefit of the public, starting April 1st, this mass vaccination site at RCC will be available for residents to get vaccinated, and they can begin to sign up tomorrow. So check the New York State website starting tomorrow morning, and you will be able to sign up for appointments at RCC. So I wanted to make sure to acknowledge that and say thank you to the rest of the board as well on that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, motion to enter into an executive session for personnel matters.
Motion, Trustee Alpert.
Trustee Alpert.
Second, Trustee Barone.
Second, Trustee Barone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We will resume into the regular meeting after the executive session.
Where is she? Oh, she's walking her dog, of course.
I think she's done with that.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna go on. Neighbors just came home. The dog's a little bit mad.
Is Mr. Magrino on? There he is. He's connecting. Okay, motion to exit executive session. I gotta get a pen. Hold on.
Motion, Trustee Alpert.
What time is it? 10 o'clock?
Yes.
10 p.m. Exit.
Steve made the motion. Fred will make the second.
Second. Trustee Sauberman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye. Sorry.
That's okay.
No problem.
Okay, so at this time, after our executive session meeting, the board came out and is going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to nominate Joseph Ingley to the position of police officer full-time in the village of Suffern.
Motion.
Trustee Alpert. Do I have a second?
Trustee Sauberman, seconds.
Trustee Sauberman. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, I don't believe Trustee Barone is with us.
Trustee Barone was excused from the remainder of the meeting. I'm sorry, I failed to mention that. So, and Trustee Barone did indicate that he was in favor for the residents' information. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Motion to close the meeting.
I so move. Trustee Sauberman.
Trustee Sauberman, 10:03.
Second,
Sauberman.
You recommend.
And seconded by trustee Corrigan.
yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Closed. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Everyone stay safe.
Talk to you on Monday.